Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen. So Josh is good. So we are all soldiers in a battle against the microorganisms. We all realize the the burden of disease has increased because of widespread resistance. So I would start with this quote because in military terms one can learn from history, and a famous Chinese philosopher as well as General Sun Tzu said that if you know the enemy and you know yourself, and with that I mean yourself and your weapons, then you need not fear the results of 100 battles. What I mean by this is that in our armamentarium, the antimicrobials that we have, we must know them well and we must know their use well. This is not meant to be an extensive lecture on all possible antimicrobials that we have, but just a refresher of the important ones that we use in the ICU, and these are important for your exams, of course, because you have a separate table on drugs, and a lot of drugs, the antimicrobials form a big part of that. So straight away we'll jump into the various groups. So the oldest amongst us, penicillins. Penicillins, the mechanism of action well known. It prevents cell wall synthesis by binding to the enzymes called the PBPs, and they are the beta-lactam antibiotics. They are bactericidal in action. Various groups, the natural penicillins, penicillin G, benzathine and procaine. Aminopenicillins was the modification, ampicillin and amoxicillin. Anti-staph action, specifically with oxacillin. And anti-pseudomonal cover with ticarcillin and piperacillin. Ticarcillin, one thing of note is it has an odd kind of dosage, so it's a 3.1 gram 4 RD kind of as a full dose. So that is something to be remembered. Penicillin G, available per oral preparation, intramuscular as well as IV. It's a drug of choice for syphilis, for Neisseria meningitidis, group A strep and actinomycosis. However, the resurgence of syphilis, especially in Central Europe, you are seeing now resistance to penicillin G also. And they have long-acting forms like procaine penicillin G and benzathine penicillin, very painful. Adverse reactions can cause the typical serum sickness. The famous Jerry's Herxheimer reaction, famous for pathology teachers. So it's a typical immune-mediated reaction. And hemolytic anemia, pancytopenia, and neutropenia. Coming to the aminopenicillin, it has a spectrum which is same as of penicillin G, but it gives additional cover for Haemophilus influenza as well as some cover against E. coli. It is the drug of choice for Listeria monocytogenes and Enterococcus, and a dose of 2 gram IV 4 RD. And it is integral in the Helicobacter pylori eradication regimens. Adverse reactions include non-allergic rashes, especially when associated with viral illnesses, and it is better tolerated perorally and better absorbed. However, ampicillin must be taken on empty stomach. A commonly used broad-spectrum antibiotic is piperacillin in combination with tazobactam, and it is a drug of choice for Pseudomonas infections. However, you must take it with a pinch of salt. As I come later, the amount of ESBL activity is such that we have to see whether what is the milieu, how is the patient coming, whether from community or whether it is hospital acquired, what is the syndromic approach, what is the source of infection, and these criteria will take into account whether you directly go for a carbapenem or you can initially start with piperacillin tazobactam. So the most commonly the gram-negative infections that we are facing belong to the escape group. Just commonly the Enterobacteriaceae, the E. coli, the Klebsiella, Acinetobacter, and obviously some gram-positives also like Enterococcus and staph. So these are the common resistant organisms, multi-drug resistant organisms that are present in the ICU. So to give an initial broad spectrum cover, it's come out as the drug of choice because it gives anti-pseudomonal activity. Coming to the combination, as I said, beta-lactamase inhibitors. clavulanic acid. So amoxicillin and clavulanic combination. The spectrum cover, good cover for the methicillin sensitive staph aureus and upper respiratory infections, covering your most common upper respiratory infection would be a strep. So streptococcus pneumoniae, Haemophilus influenza, Moraxella catarrhalis, and most anaerobes. And it is responsible for most of the GI side effects also of the augmentin. Sulbactam, the spectrum is most anaerobes plus many enteric gram-negative rods and MSSA. And it is a drug of choice for gram-negative rods, mixed infections like E. coli and Proteus anaerobes when Pseudomonas is not the likely implication thing. And wound infections. Sulbactam alone is also supposed to be very active against Acinetobacter, however not used as monotherapy. Tazobactam, in combination with piperacillin, tazobactam is a broad spectrum penicillin and it gives improved activity versus gram-negative rods including the anaerobes. Dosage, standard dosage is 4.5 grams 6 to 8 hourly. Cephalosporins, the standard armamentarium in broad spectrum cover when increased resistance was found to penicillins. Various generations have come out, first, second, third, fourth, and obviously now fifth also. Mechanism of action is to disrupt the synthesis of the peptoglycan layer forming the bacterial cell wall, and it is important for cell wall integrity. Indications include septicemia, community acquired pneumonia. Ceftazidime and ceftriaxone do have the anti-pseudomonal properties. Here you can see the range of bacteria being covered. In first generation, MSSA, Streptococcus, and some gram-negative like Proteus, however not much. Second generation had some enhanced gram-negative cover, including Haemophilus, Enterobacter, and Neisseria. But third generation is what really broke that barrier and gave the proper broad spectrum cover for the important gram-negative rods like E. coli, Pseudomonas, and Klebsiella. However, they have decreased activity against gram-positives. And now Cefepime fourth generation, the gram-positive cover is same as first, but the gram-negative cover is equally effective as third generation. Mostly because of the large amount of ESBL activity increasing resistance, now the drug of choice whenever we are having a severe infection with gram-negatives is directly to go to carbapenem, especially in early septic shock and complicated infections. Mechanism of action inhibits the bacterial wall synthesis by binding to several PBPs, which in turn inhibit the final transpeptidation change of the peptidoglycan synthesis in bacterial cell walls, thus inhibiting the cell wall biosynthesis. So, ertapenem is mostly out of the ICU because effectiveness has not been studied so much. So, I'll limit myself to meropenem, imipenem, and doripenem. Activity is more or less same. However, meropenem and imipenem are much more studied. So, the first line treatment when we are considering a carbapenem is either meropenem or imipenem. However, slight differences is that imipenem we would not consider pregnancy or the safety profile is not so sure, and patients with known seizure disorders or who has developed a seizure, we probably prefer the doripenem over imipenem or meropenem. Important thing to note about carbapenems is that how is their pharmacokinetic dynamic profile. Here the time above the MIC, and same goes for piperacillin tazobactam. The time over MIC is important. So we have to be careful that we give it as a prolonged infusion so that we are able to keep the concentrations high. Dosage, standard dosage 1.5 to 6 grams per 24 hours as a 3-hour infusion, 8 hourly for meropenem. For doripenem, it is 500 milligram 8 hourly. So there will be renal modifications, of course. If the creatinine clearance is between 26 to 50, then we reduce it to a 12 hourly dose. If it is 10 to 25, then we half that dose, and less than that we just give the half dose in a once daily regimen, and once dialysis we give the full dose post dialysis. Spectrum of activity for carbapenems, good cover for MSSA and strep pneumonia, and gram-negative cover for Klebsiella, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, E. coli, Acinetobacter, Enterococcus faecalis, not faecium, bacteroids, and Haemophilus influenza. Another thing to note is that the resistance patterns that are coming in, whenever we find the presence of XDRs or PDRs, one must assume carbapenem resistance sometimes, but obviously as an initial drug of choice it should be there. But whenever we are finding culture, once the report comes, you may have to either increase the dose or give a dual coil. And this is mostly because of the chances of increasing resistance, that one must also follow and coordinate with your microbiology department and look at the MIC breakpoints that are once the culture comes in. So what is the breakpoint, and is the resistance is there, or intermediate resistance is there, you may have to add additional cover or increase the dosage. So how is the resistance coming in? These are plasmid mediated, so that is why they are spreading with healthcare associated infections, and the hand hygiene protocols. Whenever there is a breakdown, you will have increased incidence of resistance. The resistance genetic plasmid mediated genes that are being produced are various ones of them. Most famous is the NDM metalloproteinase that we all know is the major problem coming in. Efflux plunk mediated for meropenem, loss of corin channels for imipenem, and mostly efflux plunk for doripenem. Side effects, as I said, that imipenem has more seizure potential. However, the meropenem, you may have side effects of neurovascular nature or pancytopenia. Next class of antibiotics I will discuss, fluoroquinolones. Fluoroquinolones, we all have been using it, we all know it well. ICU usage, at least what we have seen in our usage, that resistance is quite high to fluoroquinolones. So firstly, one must use it for a very specific intention and in a guarded way. And also, because of the fact in India, it is it's a reserve anti-tubercular drug, so it should not be used lightly, because of the chances of emerging resistance to tuberculosis. So they are the only class which are direct inhibitors of the bacterial DNA synthesis. They are bactericidal, and the spectrum includes Mycobacterium, Enterobacteriaceae, Haemophilus influenza, and Neisseria. Advantage is that oral bioavailability is very high. So 100% for levofloxacin, ofloxacin, and around 70% for ciprofloxacin. And dosages are 500 to 750 once daily for levofloxacin. There will be a renal modification required for levofloxacin, and it is reduced to half if creatinine clearance is less than 50. We have to go for alternate day dosing or thrice weekly dosing for further drop in GFRs. Side effects include gastrointestinal, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, dizziness, seizure, other like QT prolongation and arthropathy. Next group I will discuss, aminoglycosides, have been since the 60s with us, but out of favor because of its, in the ICU specifically, because of its side effect profile. Mechanism of action, it primarily acts by binding to the amino acyl site of the 16S ribosomal RNA within the 30S unit and leading to misreading of the genetic code and inhibition of translocation. Spectrum, good gram-negative cover and including mycobacterial cover. Here the difference between specifically between aminoglycosides and your cephalosporins or carbapenems is, here what is important is the concentration over the MIC. So you give a large bolus dose to achieve a concentration effect, and secondly they have a post antibiotic effect also. So there's slight difference from the way that you give aminoglycosides from the cephalosporins or carbapenems. Recommended dosage 15 to 20 milligram per kg per day for amikacin. Side effects most commonly nephrotoxicity, ototoxicity, and neuromuscular blockade. So their indications primarily are as combination antibacterial therapy. They have antimicrobacterial action and used frequently in complicated UTIs. The glycobactides, vancomycin and teicoplanin, we will discuss shortly. Vancomycin, the mechanism of action, it inhibits the bacterial cell wall synthesis by blocking the glycopeptide polymerization through binding tightly with the D-alanine portion of the cell wall precursor. Their spectrum of activity, good activity against the aerobic gram-positive bacteria, specifically Enterococcus faecalis, the methicillin sensitive Staph aureus, Listeria monocytogenes, and Streptococcus. Increasing resistance to vancomycin has been noted with 5 different genotypes, Van A, B, C, D, and E, and Enterococcus faecium has emerged as the main drug resistant bacteria, which may be Van A and B both. And there you have to then go for the reserve drugs. I'll come to that. Dosage of vancomycin is 25 milligram per kg per dose 12 hourly. However, cause of nephrotoxicity and the change of the levels, one must have a trough level monitoring of vancomycin, and they should be sent before the 4th dose. And the maintenance levels, generally for severe infections, you will require at least 10 to 20 microgram per ml of a vancomycin level. And as I said, the renal modification will have to be done. So primarily for MRSA infections, the drug of choice, especially osteomyelitis, septicemia, prosthetic valve endocarditis, and oral vancomycin is used. Here no dose modification is required for its oral dosage, and it is used for the Clostridium difficile infections, pseudomembranous colitis. The dose is 125 mg 6 hours. Side effects include nephrotoxicity, ototoxicity, and the famous red man syndrome, which is mostly seen when you give it in a very short period with a large bolus dose. If you give it with saline over a period of 1 hour, it's not the same. Coming to teicoplanin, because of the difficulty in maintaining the drug levels and monitoring of drug levels, although not available in the US, in India mostly gram-positive septicemia we are targeting. We are using as a drug of choice mostly teicoplanin. It's again glycoside antibiotic. Standard dose is 400 milligram 12 hourly in 3 doses first, and then you turn to once daily doses. And it is bacteriostatic in nature. So once if you are targeting bacteremia, you probably have to be careful about the usage, because the bactericidal versus static effect. Spectrum is similar to vancomycin, and less adverse drug reactions and a simpler administration is there. Linezolid is a reserve drug for gram-positive infections. It's an oxazolidinone, and the mechanism is inhibits the bacterial protein synthesis by binding to the bacterial 23S ribosomal RNA of the 50S subunit and prevents the bacterial translation process. Dose is 600 milligram 12 hourly, oral or IV, because this oral bioavailability is also quite good. Indications: skin, subcutaneous infections, and vancomycin resistant enterococci. Important thing to note is that whenever we are anticipating a prolonged therapy, we have to be aware of the adverse effects of linezolid, because they can cause a lot of myelosuppression. So especially in the pediatric population, even in adults, already if there is thrombocytopenia or neutropenia, we'll have to monitor it much more. And it also causes a sort of a serotonin syndrome kind of effect. So there may be drug interactions with such neurolepts or antipsychotics and these medications. The macrolides, standard erythromycin, clarithromycin, azithromycin, their mechanism is they inhibit protein synthesis by reversely binding to the 50S ribosomal subunit. The antibacterial activity, they are bactericidal or static depending on the concentration and type of bacteria. Dosage standards: clarithromycin 500 mg 12 hourly, erythromycin 1 to 2 grams per day in 4 divided doses, and azithromycin 250 to 500 milligrams per day. They have a good spectrum of activity for gram-positive aerobes and methicillin susceptible Staph aureus. Also has good activity against group B and viridans streptococci, bacillus species, and corynebacteria. Also against Moraxella catarrhalis and Neisseria species. However, they do not have activity against Enterobacteriaceae. So also, because of the fact in community acquired pneumonia, you may have atypical bacteria playing a part. So we generally patient with community acquired pneumonia. Apart from our drug of choice against strep, that is either piperacillin tazobactam or third generation cephalosporin, we add the atypical cover. So the macrolide antibiotic clarithromycin 500 mg is what we generally add. It's a drug of choice for Legionella, Chlamydia species, and Mycoplasma. Absorption issues may be there. Erythromycin has variable absorption, and food may decrease the absorption. The base is destroyed by gastric acid and has to be enteric coated. Clarithromycin, however, is acid stable and well absorbed regardless to the presence of food, and azithromycin is acid stable and it increases absorption of the capsules. However, they have very poor CSF penetration, and none of the macularies are removed during diuresis. In terms of drug interactions, they are inhibitors of the cytochrome P450 system and may increase concentrations of these drugs. Tigecycline, again it's a glycylcycline antibiotic, or it's orange lysophilicized powder. Its mechanism, it binds to the 30S ribosomal subunit of the susceptible bacteria, thereby inhibiting the protein synthesis. However, one must again understand it's bacteriostatic and has a large volume of distribution. So again, against bacteremia, one will have to look at the dosages that you are using. Standard loading dose is 100 mg followed by 50 mg twice daily. Spectrum of activity covers good cover for Staph aureus, Streptococcus, Klebsiella, E. coli, Acinetobacter, Citrobacter, Enterococcus faecalis, Haemophilus influenza, and Legionella. Dose adjustment will be required in child poxy liver disease, and indications are complicated skin and subcutaneous tissue infections and complicated abdominal infections. There is a FDA black box warning with regards to use of tigecycline for pneumonias found to have a increased mortality. So again, this may be related to the amount of drug dosing that you are doing. In fact, for all drugs, if you are not changing your drug dosing in more than 50% of your ICU patients daily, there is something wrong. So all these drugs, one has to see whether there is increased clearance, whether there is now decrease in renal function. All these drug modifications need to be looked at in our ICU patients. So because of the amount of carbapenem resistance coming in, the older antibiotics have made a return to our ICUs, and somehow they have become, instead of a last resort, most commonly they are being more and more commonly they are being prescribed because of the emerging threat of XDRs, PDRs, and widespread resistance to carbapenems. So the polymyxins, polymyxin B and polymyxin E, that is colistin, are the approved polymyxins that are there in the ICU. The mechanism, it is a bactericidal drug that binds to lipopolysaccharides and phospholipids in the outer cell membrane of gram-negative bacteria and competitively displaces the divalent cations from the phosphate groups of the membrane lipids, which leads to disruption of the outer cell membrane, leakage of intracellular contents, and bacterial death. Colistin, the available form, needs a bit of a study because of the fact that it may be available as the colistimethate sodium, which is expressed in international units, or colimycin, which is expressed in milligram of colistin based activity. Important thing to remember is that 2.4 milligram of the colistimethate sodium is equal to the 1 milligram of CBA. So if you have if you are consulting a book which has the dosages written in CBA, you have to convert. So the standard conversion is 1 milligram is 30,000 international units. The dose is written as 3 to 5 milligram per kg. Then it would convert into international units of a total of 9 million units per day. Right? For a 60 kg jab, the standard dosage will be there. I'll come to that. The spectrum of activity: gram-negative bacilli, Pseudomonas, good cover, and Acinetobacter, E. coli, Klebsiella species, Enterobacter, Citrobacter, Salmonella, and Shigella, Haemophilus influenza, Bordetella, and Legionella pneumophila. The pharmacokinetic dynamics, because of the fact that it was out of usage, has come back, so it's not very well supported by evidence. But however, whatever the usages is there, recommended is that you give a 9 million units first dose, followed by 9 million units per day in 2 divided doses, and this dose achieves a plasma level of within 12 hours as compared to the 3 older kind of dosages of 3 million units 8 hourly which was being used, and it takes 48 hours, which takes 48 hours for the plasma levels to be reached. Obviously, because of its nephrotoxicity, we will have to have a renal modification for colistin. Here, if you just look at the creatinine levels, so these are the modifications given: 2 MU 8 hourly for 1.3 to 1.5 creatinine,
1.6 to 2.5, it's 2 million units 12 hourly. More than 2.6 milligram per deciliter, you will have 2 million units once daily. On dialysis, you can use after each hemodialysis, 2 million units. Again, another drug which was introduced initially, then went out of favor, now has been reintroduced, is fosfomycin. It is a bactericidal broad spectrum antibiotic. It inhibits early cell wall synthesis, and it has got activity against MDR, XDR, and pan-drug resistant gram-negative bacilli. The standard use of fosfomycin in our ICU is for complicated UTIs, and simply a UTI you can use an oral formulation also, such as 3 grams. It comes in an 8 gram sachet which has got 3 grams of fosfomycin. You give a one-time dose, and the IV use for severe infection is up to 24 grams per day in complicated infections. And dose adjustment will be required for creatinine clearance below 40 ml per minute. Should be avoided as monotherapy. Another antibiotic making a comeback is because of the fact it got a good drug holiday. So, because of the presence of XDRs, PDRs, and Acinetobacter, especially, minocycline has again made a comeback. It's a second generation synthetic tetracycline and has gram positive as well as negative cover, and it has enhanced activity against the MDR Acinetobacter baumannii. And although bacteriostatic, it is cycled in combination. So again, it's not used in monotherapy, it's used as a combination. And dosage is 200 milligram loading dose and 100 milligram 12 hour. The hepatic metabolism is there and it's cleared renally. One must limit it to 200 milligrams per day in renal failure. And drug reactions or adverse reactions are similar to those of tetracyclines. So thank you very much.